All right, welcome everybody to the April 1st, 2024 Belvedere City Council regular meeting. If the clerk will help me out with the roll call, please.
Albertini,
Here.
Brereton,
Here.
Fleury,
Here.
Frank. Here. Freeman. Here. Gramkowski. Here. McGee.
Here.
Mulhall. Mulhall's absent.
Here she is.
Oh, Mulhall's here. Snow.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
10 present.
All right, if you'll please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear Lord, we pray to thank you for our country, our community, our families, and our freedoms. Lord, we thank you for our current military service members and for the men and women veterans who have served and sacrificed throughout our nation's history. We ask that you bless them and their families. We thank you for our police and fire, paramedic, first responders in our community and throughout our country who bravely serve our citizens and respond no matter what the call. We pray for their safety and well-being. And tonight we pray to honor the memory of DeKalb Sheriff's Deputy Christina Musil, who died in the line of duty last Thursday, March 28th, serving our community, and who was laid to rest today. Christina also served our country in Afghanistan in 2008 and 2009. We ask, Lord, that you comfort and be with Christina's family, her loved ones, law enforcement, and military colleagues, and the entire DeKalb community as they deal with this terrible loss. Tonight, we pray for guidance and that you give each of us compassion, patience, understanding, and courage and wisdom as we conduct our city's business here this evening. We pray for these things. In Christ's name, amen. Amen. Okay, moving on, under public comment, I do have two individuals registered, two citizens registered that want to speak. First is Percy Gordon. Percy, if you'd come up here on front of the microphone, please. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Morse. Let me first begin by thanking you and the council members for your service to our city. And I appreciate you giving me a few minutes tonight to address you. I promise to be brief. I'm here to talk about the proposed ordinance 668H with the contract that it proposes. Years ago, when I was a member of the city council, we considered just such an amendment. We never got that far, but we were concerned and we explored the possibility. The city was then, as it is now, a PRP, which is a responsible party, in the cleanup of 3 Boone County landfills. All were declared Superfund sites by the Environmental Protection Agency. Landfill 1 and 2 were municipal landfills, and the city had overseen the operation of those and actually owned landfill number 1. But the McDuane landfill out by the Farm and Fleet was privately owned and privately operated. We got pulled in as a PRP at that site because the city hauled sludge from our wastewater treatment plant to that facility for disposal. And of course, the Environmental Protection Agency recognizing that the city of Belvedere was a taxing body and had deep pockets, pulled us in as a PRP to help fund the cleanup of McDuane also. All three of these Superfund sites are still actively listed today. Over the last 30 years, millions of taxpayer dollars have been siphoned off from law enforcement, from police, fire protection, from public works, and from infrastructure repairs, and gone to environmental attorneys, consultants for the mitigation and for the cleanup of these three landfills. We, at the time we considered privatizing the garbage, was asked about the feasibility of a contract for residential waste. We asked our city attorney, before Mike Grella, and our environmental attorneys to give us an opinion. The opinion we received at that time was our least course of exposure was to let private enterprise deal with residential garbage, and that's what we did. We never even drew up an ordinance to go any further than that because we wanted to limit our future exposure. I can only wonder today what has changed in that opinion, and that's the unknown I think we're looking at here tonight. I would think it would be prudent, before adopting this ordinance, that the city council would ask for a new legal opinion from our city attorney and an environmental attorney such as Winston and Strom, was who we had on as a retainer in those days and maybe still today, and see if they can answer that liability question, because it's a very big question. You notice in the contract that was proposed in this ordinance that a city was offered an indemnity of $3 million for personal injury claims, but not $1 for environmental issues. No money for what we might face in future litigation or future judgments against the city for environmental issues at Winnebago County landfills, which is where most of the garbage is going to go. If Winnebago County landfills are not already on the Superfund, they most certainly will be. Protect us if you can for paying for their cleanup. We don't need to incur any more expense on our community. I thank you for your time, and I appreciate being able to address you tonight. Mayor Morris, thank you.
All right. Next we have Rory Peterson. Mr. Peterson.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you for coming.
I turned on? Yep, good.
You are.
It's important to have a little context with this because considering what's happened in the past with landfill liability is a whole different ball of wax than what today's situation is. The EPA came in and retroactively applied groundwater standards to old 1930s era landfill at Spencer. So there was unfortunately this week in social media, there was an uninformed and misleading post by a former alderman, and it should be corrected. And he didn't tell you, so I will. Belvedere should have done the bid process years ago before the recent 20+% Bidenflation let that horse out of the barn. I pay $12 monthly as a resident of Greenview Estates, which has franchised their garbage pickup since I moved there 22 years ago. The ex-alderman misrepresented the city's expenses from the old landfill cleanups and about our ownership of them. We only ever owned one on Appleton Road. But the background is that was one of the first Superfund cleanups in the Great Lakes region, and it was made a fund lead effort. In other words, the EPA came in and started doing the remedy, and they had no idea who had been involved. But the city had owned it, so they had that. So they sued the city as a former owner to recover their costs and forced a remedial plan to be initiated. So ex-Mayor Gratz had the police department, he had detectives go over the gate tickets from the street department to find out who all had been dumping at Appleton Road Landfill number 1. So it forced the city to recover contributions from everybody that we could find from those tickets. It included Chrysler, Belvedere Products, Apache Foam, Green Giant, Sanitary Scale, Central Rubber, and also Browning Ferris as a former operator, just to name a few. Actually, some of our own best area employers. Ex-Mayor Gratz negotiated a largely in-kind contribution from the city to be relieved of taxpayers making a large cash payment, and that has continued to this day. We would pay to lay a sewer line to the site, but then treat at city expense the groundwater extracted from collection wells under the old landfill. But after the collection system was completed, it was found that the volume of water to be treated vastly exceeded the design estimates, and it not only depleted plant reserve capacity, it strained sewer operating revenues. The city was short on options. Reviewing the problem with an environmental attorney, Barrett, retained by Boone County for their landfill, he suggested the city avoid tax increases to pay for the groundwater treatment by bidding out city garbage collection and using the franchise fee possible to spare any additional taxes on residents. That would provide twin benefits of lower collection costs potentially and cleanup funding. That was presented to the city council, and they voted to prepare bid documents and proceed accordingly. All the area garbage haulers were brought in to discuss the request for proposals being prepared and address any concerns beforehand. All of them, each and every one, were supportive and understood perfectly the rationale and pledged to sharpen their pencils, direct quote. Right up until one didn't. 1 week before the city's meeting to approve bid documents, one garbage hauler mailed out a complaint to customers that the city was, quote, driving me out of business, closing me down. So enough headwind was created thereby that the council reversed their entire previous vote, and none voted to even consider bids. The citizens were thus stuck with all the remaining Appleton Road cleanup costs, a cost imposed on them unfairly in that the city had no business owning that landfill in the first place, and in the second place, because not one garbage hauler ever paid 1 cent in landfill cleanup costs. Let that sink in. They filled it. Taxpayers cleaned it. And in the election, a couple months later, one of the aldermen who now loudly complains about a city bid award took $500 from that same garbage enterprise to fund his campaign for mayor. Other than Rochelle, cities stay away from landfill ownership. A great many use a citywide residential contract. Fortunately, the city only ever owned Appleton Road, and that nightmare is over. Today's U.S. EPA and Illinois EPA regulate landfills and assure the financial resources for continued oversight, rather than the Superfund bomb dropped on defunct operations like the Appleton Road or McDuane private landfill. As a sewer plant owner, the city has liability everywhere that sludge gets deposited. And unfortunately, the city now has fewer methods to improve productivity and cost effectiveness for residents than ever before. You might be in love with your garbage hauler, But take a look at what's been going on with your billings. Your garbage company is not in love with you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think that's all we have for public comment. Item 4, approval of the minutes in your packet was the minutes of March 18th, 2024, as presented for the regular meeting. If I could have a motion to approve those minutes, please. Motion by Alderman Fleury, thank you, and second by Alderman McGee, thank you. Is there any corrections? Anybody have any comments regarding the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed, motion passed, thank you. And item 5, we do have 2 public hearings. Item A is for our annual budget for 2024-2025 fiscal year. And if there's no objection, we will open a public hearing at 6:16 p.m., 6:17 p.m. For anybody who wishes to speak regarding the City of Belvedere notice of public hearing for our annual budget ordinance. This was published in the Boone County Journal on March 21st of 2024. So if there's anybody who has any comments, now is the chance to be heard. Going once. All right. Hearing none, we will close the public hearing at 6:18 p.m. for item A. And item B, we have the vacation of a portion of Irene Road. We will open that public hearing at, we'll call it 6:18 p.m. still. And that's a notice of public hearing on vacation of a portion of Irene Road. Again, that was published in the Boone County Journal on March 14th, 2024. And since this public hearing is open to the public, if anybody wishes to comment, now would be the proper time, and the floor would be yours. Okay. Going once. All right, we will close the public hearing for the notice of vacation of a portion of Irene Road at 6:19 p.m. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is item 6, special messages and proclamations. We have item A, which is Child Abuse and Prevention Month proclamation. I'm honored this evening, as he does so many times, at least the 3 years that I've been here. He's been gracious enough to take time out of his evening and come here along with Amy Gallino and Judge Rob Tobin. I want to thank you both. I have a proclamation, and I would like, if you would join me up here, please. All right, this proclamation is for Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas throughout the month of April, the Family Violence Coordinating Council and other prevention groups will be hosting several events to bring awareness to the issue of child abuse. And whereas over 100,000 victims of child abuse are reported each year in the state of Illinois. And whereas every child is entitled to be loved, cared for, nurtured, feel secure, and be free from verbal, sexual, emotional, and physical abuse and neglect. And whereas the City of Belvedere has dedicated individuals and organizations who work daily to counter the problem of child abuse and neglect and to help parents obtain the assistance they need. And whereas our communities are stronger when all citizens become aware of child abuse and neglect prevention and become involved in supporting parents to raise their children in a safe and nurturing environment. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because of partnership among families, social service agencies, schools, religious and civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business communities. Now therefore, I, Clinton Morris, Mayor of Belvedere, do hereby officially recognize and proclaim April 2024 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month in the city of Belvedere, Illinois, and encourage all citizens rally support for child abuse victims and volunteer with organizations pleading to end this crime that plagues our society. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and affix a seal of the city of Belvedere this first day of April 2024. And Judge Tobin, I want to give this to you, and I know that there's a lot of individuals that work with you, but I do know that your court sees a lot of these, too many. And I appreciate your dedication and your commitment to go ahead and making certain that you do your part as a judge of Boone County every time you take the bench. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to say a few words, Judge?
Just briefly, thanks.
Absolutely.
I want to thank all of you guys. This is one of those few offenses that actually starts from the streets up. It starts with a phone call, usually from a household, a school, or a neighbor. Without that, it never hits police and fire, DCFS, things of that nature. And I can tell you I can't talk for every county, I can talk for Boone County and assure you that once that case hits our front door, we treat it with the severity that it deserves. Again, I can't speak for every county, every jurisdiction. I can assure you that every case that comes in that door is going to get treated with as much as it would if it were murder, a Class X felony, or a sex offense. And that's all we can do for you, but really these things start from the households, the churches, the schools, the first phone call. Without the first phone call, we never see it. And so I also want to say thank you for loaning us Gina. She's on the commission, and she does, like, I don't know, if I say she does 25 times more than I do on that commission, I would be underselling her. I do thank you guys for letting us use her, because she's an important part. So, Amy, is there anything else? Amy loves to talk in public.
Thank you for letting us come. The 17th Circuit is very appreciative of the time you've given us, and for Gina and the fire department and the police department. It takes all of us. I know many of the faces around here, so it takes a village, and it really does in Boone County, and I think we all work really well together. I have a great group. I am chairperson, thanks to Judge Tobin, of our local Family Violence Coordinating Council. Gina's on that working group with me. We have a lot of activities planned for next week for Child Abuse Awareness Month. I believe you organized this. You organized the banner across State Street. We have Hands Around the Gazebo next week across from the courthouse. I would encourage all of you to come. We have North Boone High School Choir coming once again next year to sing for about an hour. We have some guest speakers. We also do sidewalk chalk designs, and Chief Shadle did quite a job last year. So hopefully you'll come again, and your peeps will come again, and I know the police department did as well. We encourage the neighborhood kids. We chalk out well, it's not raining, the month of April, chalk throughout the park, so they will continue to draw and address child abuse awareness month. So please join us next week.
Thanks again. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Judge Tobin, for coming, and thank you, Amy Gallineau. Thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for all the work you do. All right, moving on, item 7, approval of expenditures. We have none this evening. Item 8, committee reports and minutes of city officers. Item A, approval of the minutes of the regular Committee of the Whole Public Safety Finance Personnel meeting of March 25th, 2024, as presented in your packets. Could I have a motion for their approval? Motion by Alderwoman Mulhall, second by Alderman Albertini. Thank you. And is there any questions, any comments, any corrections over those minutes? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed? Motion passed, thank you. And moving along, item 9, unfinished business, we have, excuse me, for a second reading, item A, ordinance 665H, that being, excuse me, that being an ordinance budgeting for all corporate purposes for the city of Belvedere, Boone County, Illinois, for the fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2024, and ending April 30th, 2025. If I could have a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderwoman Mohal, thank you, and a second. Second by Alderman McGee, thank you. And the floor is open. Any questions or concerns on the motion? Alderman Snow?
So I would like to make a motion that we allow for the $2,000 request from the sister city to be added back into the budget.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to install $2,000 into the sister cities request. And do we have a second? Second by Alderwoman Freeman, thank you. Thank you both. Is there any comments, any questions regarding that motion? Okay. All right. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion to add $2,000 to the sister cities in this fiscal year's budget will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay? As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Albertini,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Nay.
Frank,
Nay.
Freeman,
Aye.
Gramkowski,
Nay.
McGee,
Nay.
Mulhall,
Nay.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
No.
4 in favor.
Okay, motion failed. Moving on with the budget, Alderman Snow, did you have your hand up again?
Yes. Would like to change the request for growth dimensions from 20,000 to 55,000.
Okay, do we have there's a motion, do we have a second to amend growth dimensions from 20,000 to 55,000 in this fiscal year budget? Motion is on the floor. Anybody want to second?
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Alderwoman Mohal, thank you both. Any discussion, any comments regarding the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor will, when the name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay? As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Brereton,
No.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Nay.
Freeman,
Aye.
Gramkowski,
Nay.
McGee,
Nay.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
No.
Albertini,
Aye.
5 in favor.
Motion failed. All right, do we have any other amendments, any other changes to this year's budget? Okay. All right, so the budget then remains the same that you have in front of you for this fiscal year for the corporate purposes for the city of Belvedere, beginning May 1st, 2024, and ending April 30th, 2025. All those in favor of the motion will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Nay.
Gramkowski,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Snow,
No.
Stevens,
Aye.
Albertini,
Aye.
Brereton,
No.
7 in favor.
Motion passed, and the chair, I'll vote yes. Item B, under unfinished business, ordinance 666H for a second reading, that being an ordinance granting a special use to allow a mural within the central business district located at 315 South State Street. That is in your packet as well.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Fleury. Thank you. Is there any comments or questions on the motion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls a roll, please.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Gramkowski,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Albertini,
Aye.
Brereton,
Abstain.
Flurry,
Aye.
9 in favor.
Motion passed. Thank you. All right, on the next page, item 9C, we have ordinance 667H in front of you this evening for a second reading, that being an ordinance amending section 110-91, stop streets of the city of Belvedere Municipal Code to add Franklin Street at West Perry Street and West Perry Street at King Street as stop streets. If I could have a motion. Motion by Alderman Snow and a second by Alderwoman Mohau. Thank you. Is there any comments or questions regarding the motion? Alderwoman Freeman?
Thank you, Mayor. So Director Anderson, we made the mistake of putting one at Union Avenue against your advice. Can you refresh my memory as to this particular ordinance and whether IDOT and your studies showed that this was necessary?
These are both controlled by yield signs now, so you're simply replacing the yield signs with the stop signs.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments regarding the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion on the floor to put stop streets in the city of Belvedere to add Franklin Street and West Perry Street and West Perry Street and King Street as stop streets will, when the name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Freeman,
Aye.
Gramkowski,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Albertini,
Aye.
Brereton,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
9 in favor. I mean,
Motion-
10 in favor.
Motion passed, thank you, better yet. So, item D in your packet, ordinance 668H, second reading this evening, that being an ordinance amending Article 2, refuse collectors and collection of Chapter 94 solid waste of the City of Belvedere Municipal Code, and authorizing the execution of a residential solid waste disposal agreement. If I could get a motion to that effect. Motion by Alderwoman Mohau, thank you. Second by Alderman McGee, thank you. And any questions, any comments? Alderman Snow?
So I'm against this. I think free enterprise is the better way to go. I've heard a lot of comments that are anti forcing people to have the city choose their garbage disposal. Everybody gets the idea of the cost savings, but they like having control over their own existence, and I'm going to be voting no.
Any other comments? Alderman Albertini?
Thank you, Mayor. I understand that there's a controversy about this both ways. I've received calls in favor, I've received calls negative. it's a 50-50 as far as what I've received. I understand the fact that it would save people money. Whether they understand that or not or care about that, I don't know. I could say one thing, that unfortunately this doesn't affect me because of where I live. So it's going to be a little confusing, being it's already a 50-50 deal. I understand that the people would have less truck traffic and it'd be a little cheaper for them, but because it doesn't pertain to me, when it comes time to vote, I'm going to have to abstain.
Okay. Any other comments? Alderwoman Frank, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to address the liability issues that were brought up. If somebody, the Attorney Drella, or if the refuge company is here, if they could speak on this to clear some things up
What question did you have?
about the liability, how it would affect the city, and what our chances are if we go forward with this. Just to set the record straight.
There's literally hundreds of pages of bound volumes discussing liability as it pertains to environmental contamination, environmental sites. And that most of that's because of the Comprehensive Environmental Response and Compensation Liability Act, CERCLA, which is a federal law that governs pollution control and who's responsible for paying for spills and accidents and things like that. And there's a slew of different types of liability, and the ones that former Alderman Gordon was speaking of earlier deal with those that are tied with the owner operator of a facility. That's one type of entity that can be liable for damages under CERCLA. Another one, and it sounds scary when you first read it, governs what's called a ranger liability. And a ranger liability includes situations akin to ours where a party facilitates the transport of hazardous material, and that's an important term, to a landfill and causes a release, or a release happens at that landfill. And the theory is, and it can be, you might have owned it, you might have owned that hazardous waste and contracted with Drella's hauling to take it to a landfill. It was mine, they hauled it, I'm responsible for that. That one makes sense. But it could include a municipality who contracts and creates a franchise agreement with a hauler to haul hazardous waste to a landfill. And if there is a release and it becomes a Superfund site, that municipality could become a potentially responsible party within the scheme of things. So there is the possibility of liability. The liability is slight. The chances of it happening are slight. I shouldn't say the dollars, because if the dollars happen, it's big. But the chance of liability is slight for a couple of reasons. One reason is in 1989, and again in 1998, the EPA set forth settlement policies in the way that they govern, decide who's going to be responsible, who they're going to name as a potentially responsible party in any litigation. And in those policies, they recognize the need that municipalities have to handle trash for their citizens. And so they basically created a rebuttable presumption that household trash is not hazardous. And therefore municipalities, and even the haulers that are hauling just household trash, are not liable under CERCLA for damages in a cleanup action. Again, it's a rebuttal presumption, because if they can show that there was a release and almost all the waste came from the city of Belvedere, that'd be a way to rebut that presumption. But it does provide certain protections for the city. There was one case, the B.F. Goodrich case, in which that court reminded everybody and ruled that a municipality could still be brought as a PRP, because not just the EPA, but any operator or anybody else that's found to be liable can also sue to have PRPs named. So it protects us EPA-wise. You still have the issue if there's ever a cleanup action that somebody might try to bring you in. But when it comes right down to it, it's for hazardous materials. Both your existing ordinance and the proposed ordinance prohibit the dumping of hazardous materials into the household trash. And the franchise agreement that we're considering entering into also only allows the collection of non-hazardous household trash, meaning that anybody would have a very hard time proving that we hauled or allowed the hauling of any hazardous material, which would help diminish our liability under CERCLA. So again, it's possible. And if you get named as a PRP, you know, you'll have lawyers' fees and things like that, but it's very unlikely. Which is buttressed by the fact that even the Illinois Municipal Code specifically authorizes both, non-home rule units, we're home rule, but authorizes non-home rule units to enter into exactly this kind of contract for up to, I believe, 30 years. So the municipal code provides for it. And frankly, when I moved here in 2003, I was surprised that we had a laissez-faire form of trash hauling, because I'd never represented a city that didn't have this kind of arrangement to haul their own trash. And that's still the case today. Most cities do haul trash for the residents either themselves or more commonly through a franchise agreement with a single source hauler. So that's the norm of operation. So I cannot tell you there's no liability, because there is. What I can tell you is that the chances of being named as a PRP are slight. If it were to occur, because we did allow hauling hazardous waste, you're looking at significant liability if that were to happen. But again, the chances of that happening are fairly minimal. So does anybody have any questions?
Alderwoman Frank?
Okay, my other question is, Rock River Disposal, they are a parent company to other garbage companies that we have in town?
No, they have a parent company that owns several, and I'll let them speak to it, but they are one of the subsidiaries of a parent company that owns several waste hauling companies.
Okay, so some of those we already have in town, so we're not gonna be losing, per se, too many garbage companies that we have in town. It's basically.
It is a
under-
separate company, but they have a parent company.
Okay, so they're not under the same umbrella.
They are under the same umbrella.
Okay,
I forgot to mention one other thing. The agreement does contain a provision for environmental insurance that covers the city. It's a $5 million policy, which will cover a lot of the attorney's fees if it happens.
Alderwoman Gramkowski?
Thank you, Mayor. So how many other communities, we're not reinventing the wheel here. There's other communities that have entered into a franchise agreement that are willing to take the risk, if you will, or not.
The mayor's going to want to jump in on this one because he did some research today, but the agreement that I drafted is the draft agreement after the council said they wanted to look at this. I put together a formal agreement that was sent out with the PRP. I created a hybrid agreement including Rockford's, Loves Parks, Cherry Valleys, Poplar Groves, Marangos. I think there's one other, but I think we're the only community in the region I know of that actually doesn't have sole source waste hauling.
Okay.
And if I could elaborate, so the name of the communities that actually do have a franchise agreement with a hauler is Sycamore, Rochelle, Dixon, DeKalb, Loves Park, McChesney Park, Rockton, Roscoe, South Beloit, Rockford, and Marengo. So I think the city attorney is probably right when it comes to, is this reinventing the wheel or is this a new invention? It's not. The reason these communities do it is because they look at it as a opportunity to save their residents. In this case, in our case, I had looked at this originally when I was running for office. I had proposed this as one of the 8 or 9 things that I had felt I wanted to try and address. Very seldom do you find that government, local, state, or federal, do you find that they come to the residents or citizens and they say, I'm going to do something for you that's not going to cost you money. As everybody fully understands here, that is not the case. As a matter of fact, I can't think of a case, and I've been involved in local government since 1993, very few times. Now, in this case, I think when you look back at what had happened with the PRPs, you had a lot of, as we had commented about, industrial hazardous waste. Everything from ComEd to Chrysler to Sunstrands, Apache Foam, many of those did dump in a landfill here, and that was hauled. But in that case, it was a county landfill. This landfill, this agreement, what we're doing, is only an agreement that's going to haul residential waste. It's the same residential waste that goes over to the same landfill that right now 3 or 4 or 5 other trucks drive on your same streets every day. To me, when I looked at it, and I know there's some concern, but when I look at it, it's how can we save our resident taxpayers money? How can we save them? This is an example how we can save them. Not only will we save them between $100 to up to $220 a year, depending on who they have as their hauler, not only can we save them that, but we're going to save them if you have one truck and it's going around and it's picking up all the garbage in that route, neighborhood route. And I think that to me is prudent, and I think it makes good sense. So those other communities, they actually think so too. And that's why I had said when I was elected, I'm going to bring this to the council, and I'm going to let the council decide it. And I think you should decide it, but not based upon whether or not you like or you're fond of your garbage man. That isn't the question. The question is, what are you going to do for the people that pay you to sit in this chair? That should be the question. It is for me. That's what I've determined that I want to do. I see you. So, I think that is important. I think we should not lose sight of the fact that very few times can we actually do something that saves the taxpayers. It doesn't have, for instance, I don't know what Marengo Disposal is for a hauler percentage-wise, but I would venture to guess that they haul the preponderance of waste, residential waste in this community. And in this case, you may have a sticker put on your garbage can, or if you don't have a garbage can from this hauler, it will be provided to you. But I think it's important to realize that a lot of people, they just care that they set their waste out and they want it collected. And if it's not collected, right now you call that provider and I've had people call me and they say, Mayor, I've called my provider, can you help me? And I have called their garbage hauler. I have called them, and in some cases they've helped. In other cases, I haven't been able to resolve it. But in this case, if they call now, of course I can say, look, I've got a franchise agreement. We have a franchise agreement here. You're going to be fined if you don't get up and you don't take the garbage from the resident. And there is a little bit of teeth to that. So I think that it provides us an opportunity to save the taxpayers money and also save our streets from wear and tear. So that's how I looked at it. Alderman Fleury.
Thank you, Mayor. I have several things to say. Just first of all, as I previously stated, again, appreciate the savings. It roughly comes out to about $7 a month. That is something, but in my opinion, and some of the citizens that I've talked to, it's not worth saving that $7 a month to take away their decision to be able to decide who they want to choose as their garbage collector. So although there is a savings for them, their ability to decide who they want to haul their garbage is not worth that savings there. And then second of all, 2 weeks ago I did have some questions from one of my citizens that I was addressed that night, but haven't received anything back yet, so I don't know if I could ask those again and see if we have those answers for those questions. All right, so the first one was, you know, what if there are problems with the garbage? Who would they contact? Would they contact the provider, the city, or what would be their course of redress?
The provider.
Okay,
Excuse me, just real quick, just like they do now. If they have a diminished service or they have a problem, that's who they call now. As I had stated, the difference is that they do call me, and when they call me, at least I would be able to help them. Now I can try, but it is difficult, and I've had several people call me since I've been in office, and they've either been skipped or they've been told we won't come down that street or alley because a line is too low, a telephone or Comcast line is too low, and that wasn't the case at all. But been able to resolve some of them, not all of them.
And obviously, if there's no resolution, they can contact City Hall. There is a liquidated damages provision within the contract where if there's a lack of performance by the contractor, damages could be imposed. They're set forth in the contract, things like failure to pick up the garbage, things like that.
right, and I think, so, kind of leaning into what this citizen was saying, and I can speak for myself, though, as I talked the first time, was about, you know, if I'm unhappy with my service, I call and I don't get the proper answers that I like, then I can cancel my service with that provider and choose a different provider. So I like that ability to choose. I understand now that the city might be involved, so that might be a better benefit, but I'm not sure. Again, I think just as a consumer, I like the ability to cancel one company and go with another one, although I know my, you know, measly amount of money that I'm paying for it isn't going to put that company out of business, but just gives me the self-assurance as a consumer that I have some control on where my money is going. The second question was, so currently they've got a agreement with their garbage company that although the one person lives out in the county, another person lives in the city, they get a discounted garbage rate because they're both using the same hauler. So if it's a different hauler than what they have now, how they just lose that discount?
Not sure what you're talking about.
So like currently there's a citizen in the county and there's a citizen in Belvedere. They pay for both the services through MDC, and because they use the same hauler, they're able to get a reduction in their rate. So if the city goes with Rock River, is that citizen no longer entitled to that discount?
They'd pay the same rate as everybody else in the city.
Okay. And then in regards to yard waste, currently this citizen is able to use plastic cans just marked with X for waste removal. Is that still the case with yard waste, or do you have to use like the brown paper sacks?
The hauler's not in his head, yes, they can still use the cans with the X on it.
And then just the other thing was, I see this takes effect on June 1st, but kind of what's the process of, like, when would you get the new cans? How the process of turning over from one company to the next, what's the, I guess, just the gist of how that would work?
So you'll notice the original date in the original agreement was a May 1 date. At Rock River's suggestion, we're trying to push that back to June 1. And the reason why they recommended that, they've got the cans, they're going to reuse a lot of Marengo Disposal's cans and carts and put a new sticker on essentially. For the residents that have either damaged carts or those from another company, they'll give them new carts. The problem is not getting the carts to the residents, but they want to make sure that there was an educational component first in which a letter would go out to all the residents, put in the shopper, put in other social media, things like that, to make them all aware that this is happening, so that when they drop the carts off several weeks before the go-live date, for lack of a better word, they don't have residents saying, "You're not my hauler," and trying to kick them off the property. That way, everybody knows what's going on. So that's why the June 1 date at this point.
Right, so I think some of the concern then, a lot of people have automatic billing, so it automatically comes out of their account, so then they would just stop at May 30th to sign up with the new service. Like, there would be paperwork provided prior to June 1st of how to do automatic billing with the new company?
So the transfer over will basically be automatic. What we will do is provide addresses and account information to the waste hauler from water and sewer billing records. They'd be contacting the property owners as well to get them set up in the system. They can pre-populate their computer system with that information and verify as they go along. As far as direct withdrawals from their accounts, if that's set up with their current hauler, yeah, they'll want to follow up with their hauler, make sure those are turned off. But those same haulers also know this is going on because they all received a request to bid on it. All but 2 refused to bid on it. And so they know what's going on, and they should be shutting those off as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Graham-Kowski.
Thank you, Mayor. So I did talk to some residents. People called me and people stopped me over the weekend, which was nice. And I would say it was a ratio of about 4 to 1 that were in favor. To Alderman Fleury's point about saving $7 a month, well, I think you got to take into consideration the roadways and how much they're going to take abuse with all the trucks. So it's probably a substantial amount more than $7, but I respect that. I did kind of the math, and I figured out, you know, the city's about 25,000 people. My ward is a fifth of that. So if 5,000 people save $200 a year, that's almost $250,000 if you think about savings. So we got to think long-term. We can't just, we got to think more about who we were hired to represent, not just us. And I know I'm going to save a lot of money, but I'm going to save a lot of money anyway because I'm going to change my garbage person, or company, rather. I don't know my person.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Can you speak to how many people are going to lose their jobs if we decide to do this franchise agreement? That was brought up too in some post, which I kind of just laughed at, but.
I think we have no idea if any or how many, if there are, that would lose their jobs. I can't speak to what another hauling company would do.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Alderwoman Freeman, I think it was your post. Would you like to comment? I see you had your hand up.
I did. I have several comments. Thank you. So, as you said, MDC collects a lot of the garbage in the town, so that's a lot of personnel. So when they are no longer the people driving the trucks and picking up the garbage, what happens to their job? Their job has essentially gone to Rock River Disposal, and if they could be farmed out to a different town, I don't know why MDC hasn't already gone out and gotten that business, because that was something that was said to some people. So clearly, my neighbor is one that is telling me, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I'm probably going to lose my job because I'm a collector here. The other thing, I don't know where people are getting $200 a year. We're talking $7 a month, which is $84 a year.
I think, actually, I think you're wrong. I think there's even some older people here that pay a lot more than that. I said
Well,
between.
that's because
I said between.
they didn't shop for, that's your choice to pay that much. There are cheaper carriers that, if that's what you're paying, then that's what you're choosing to pay. So if you're saving $7 a month, that's what everybody is going to save, right? $7 a month, $9 for seniors is what was said at the podium. That is $84 a year for everybody, whether you're paying $200 a month now or $10 a month now. The other thing is a lot of people have built into their garbage contracts, if you cancel their service, you have to pay a $75 per can fee for them to come pick up those cans. Who's going to pay that?
I don't know. Is that what your neighbor told you, or?
No, that's what a constituent actually told me. That's actually here.
Well, I think you have to look at it as not just you. Wait a minute, I know you had claimed that you loved your garbage man, and that's how you started out with this discussion. I love my garbage man and I want to keep him. The point is, I had said as well, I definitely like my garbage man, and as a matter of fact, whenever he would come collect the garbage, there'd be times when I would go out and tip him, because it was a hot day. He had actually hauled the garbage. He had picked up some items that I thought were heavy, and so I'd given him a tip. But the point is, it's not about me, and it's not about you. It's about people in this community in general. And Alderman Albertini, I wanted to point out that Alderman Albertini, when you live out at Four Seasons or you live at Greenview Estates, for instance, they charge, I believe it's either $12 or $18, 18. So they have that rate because they have a franchise agreement. They have one hauler, and they benefit. And my point with that is that I think it is important that we recognize we represent our entire ward. We represent our entire community. We represent all of those who may not be able to afford the $7, or I know it is more than that, because you had received, I don't know if you'd received it, but I had received an email from individuals that said they pay $140, $130, $140. So the point is that we represent, and we're trusted to represent the individuals that have elected us. They've trusted us to do the right thing. Now, they may not all be able to be here, but they trust that we'll make a decision that not only would be in our benefit, but their benefit as well. And anything other than that, to me, those aren't reasons, those are excuses as to why we can't do the right thing. We should be able to do the right thing here. This really is a no-brainer.
So first of all, you started off this whole garbage discussion from the get-go as I don't have a relationship with my garbage man. I have no idea who he is, and I've never spoken to him. Second of all, I'd like to remind Alderman Albertini of what you just said. You're not representing Four Seasons or yourself, you're representing Ward 1 with your abstinent vote.
I understand.
And so if I wanted somebody, I believe in capitalism, not monopolism. So if I wanted the government to dictate to me who I could choose for something like my garbage man, I would live in an HOA. I would live in a gated community. I would live in a trailer park. I don't. I choose to live in the city for that reason. What's next, Your Honor? Are you going to say you can no longer have Xfinity Internet or iFiber or T-Mobile because the city has contracted with Verizon, and we're going to save you $5 a month, so now you all have to go with Verizon because we're going to save you $5 a month?
Well, that's not true, because we have Comcast here, and that we've never done that. And the other thing I might point out is when your question is about jobs, I recall that when I was trying to negotiate with Stellantis to stay in this community, you made a statement in public that said, we don't care about Stellantis. They don't care about us, and I don't care about whether or not they're going to keep jobs here in this community.
That's absolutely not true.
That is absolute.
That's a bold-faced lie.
That's the exact truth.
That is a bold-faced lie.
Get on your microphone. Punch your microphone.
That is a bold-faced lie. I
Well,
have a son that works there.
yeah.
I worked
That's
there.
what-
I know many people there,
pl-
and that
we'll
is a
pl-
bold-faced lie.
We'll play it for you. We'll play it for you.
You do that.
That's exactly what you said. You made a statement
Oh,
that,
this from an alderman who was voted out and reappointed against his constituents' wishes.
all right. So the fact is that you did state that, and you made my job negotiating with Stellantis much more difficult because you had pointed that out. So I find it ironic. My point is, I find it ironic now that you're.
So don't ever dare disagree with the mayor, because
No, no.
you will be personally attacked.
Only when you're not consistent, only when you're hypocritical with with what you say. So the point is, okay, the point is that that's what you said. I don't care about Stellantis. I don't care if they stay in this community, and I did, and I pointed that out to you. So I find it disingenuous, very disingenuous, when you say that now to make a case for jobs. Anyhow, Alderman Snow.
So what is the circumstance, because I have a lot of constituents in my area, I would guess probably a quarter, that don't have current trash cans that are picked up by mechanical means. They use their own trash can. What's the stipulation there? Are we now going to be on the hook for having a deposit put on those, or what's the circumstances there?
No, under the terms of the agreement, they're required to provide those cans that will be accepted by mechanical arms. They will handle any, normal wear and tear and any damage to wheels that occurs If there's damage to the container, that's basically the fault of the owner. They run them over with their car or whatever. They'd have to purchase new containers at that point.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Alderman Stevens.
The savings. My last bill, MDC, we've had since 1985. It was $99 for one large garbage can and one recycling. I've just talked to people out there, it's $114 now, and one of them has MDC's cans, and one of them has their own, so it's jumped already. So the savings is gonna be larger.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Alderwoman Mohau.
Thank you, Your Honor. Honestly, I am really, really torn on this one. I never like when the government tells me what to do and does not give me a choice. I do not love that. I do like saving money, and the only constituents I've heard from want me to vote yes on this proposal, and they want to save money. So, as of right now, I will probably vote yes, but I am concerned about the fact if there is some kind of a pickup fee of $75 for whatever companies people have. That's pretty concerning, actually, and I know there's really nothing we can do about that, but I think that's going to be something that's kind of hidden that people may not realize, so that may become problematic once this if this does pass. I'm concerned about some backlash, quite honestly.
Okay.
Mr.
Alderman Stevens?
I did forget that Poplar Grove's up there, their ordinance for doing that, found out that, like, if you get a roll-off dumpster, you have to have the carrier that they have, or you get fined from the city $100. So ours doesn't cover that, and we're not that restrictive.
Okay. Thank you. Alderwoman Mohau?
Thank you. I'm curious, what are the ramifications going to be if someone does not open their mail, does not read the shopper, is completely left in the dark, because we know that will happen. People not cancel their garbage contracts. It's going to happen. So I'm just curious what will happen. Will ordinance enforcement be playing any role in this at all? Sorry to open that can of worms.
Well, I don't want to make this painful on anybody. I want to make sure that they do realize the savings. And I think that that's been my goal all along, was to decide whether or not there in fact was a savings, and the only way you know that is if you bid it. But no, I'm not looking for to make this difficult for anybody. It's, we'll definitely help where we can. We'll market this as much as we possibly can and make sure that people understand that, and we'll do our part very best we can. Alderman Brereton?
Thank you. So I was going to have a statement prepared tonight, but I've wasted a lot of time and energy in the past on other topics to no avail. So I didn't prepare anything, so I'm just flying off the cuff here. But I'm strongly opposed to this, real strongly opposed. And I'll just touch on a couple things I can think of off the top of my head why I'm strongly opposed to this. Number one, you're eliminating the choice, and I'm never a fan of that. Number two, you are, no matter what's being said here in 30-minute answers, you are increasing the city's liability. Number three, you are going to put route drivers out of work, or at least move them to another town. I mean, I'm sure they're not going to appreciate that. Number four, we're not going to have at least 100% reduction wear and tear on the streets, because this does nothing for the commercial waste, which I was under the assumption it did at first, which was why I was at least willing to go out to bid for the price. But this does nothing. So that's not true. We're going to have 4 trucks are still going to be coming down McInnes Court or wherever it is. So that does nothing. And I won't go on and on here because been there, done that. But one thing I want to say, you know, an abstain vote, that goes with the prevailing vote. So we don't need an abstain here. We need you to either say yes or no. And I hope it's no. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Snow?
And I gotta tell you that I've never been that all keen on the aspect that having multiple trucks on the same day or 2 days in a row coming down your street picking up garbage wears and tears on the roads. Because to be quite frank, those axles are designed to disperse the load, and the more trucks you have carrying all that waste, there's less waste in one truck. At the end of the day, you're gonna have a heavier truck being hauled that's gonna wear and tear wherever it's at. I don't think the wear and tear on the roads is a viable argument, in my opinion.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
On your desk this evening was another draft of the proposed agreement. You'll notice the ordinance that was proposed authorizes the concept of going forward with franchised waste hauling and authorizes an agreement substantially similar to the one attached by the ordinance. So there's no motion needed to amend or anything like that. But I wanted to let you know where we're at in the process. So the agreement that was at your desk tonight really is the same thing that was in your packets. There were a couple of changes. The one on your desk tonight talks in terms of a termination of the agreement by convenience. That's not agreeable to the parties. And frankly, I understand that. They're going to make the investment to bring in the cans, get the trucks, bring in the crews. They can't have us canceling this contract in 6 months or a year. That was not part of the original proposal or part of the original agreement. We just reached out to them to see if it'd be agreeable. More importantly, there is a better definition of bulk items on page 3, section 6A2, to make it more clear what a bulk item would include. That would be available to be picked up at the curb each week. We took out reference to individual billing amounts in the text of the agreement and simply referred to Exhibit B. Exhibit B has all the rates that were in the proposal, but in one page, so anybody can see them very easily. So those changes were made. Finally, there was some discussion early on. You remember that there was questions about this at committee regarding the possibility of increases above the 3.5% that was called for in the contract. Those are increases that were caused solely by a change in the law or an increase in taxes unrelated to property taxes or income taxes. For example, the bills that have been floating around Springfield about imposing a tax on tipping fees to landfill stuff in landfills. If that were to be added on, the proposal, and one of the exceptions in the language, was that the hauler could pass that through to the residents. You'll notice fuel's not one of them. Regular cost of doing business is not one of them. Labor increase is not one of them. It's only changes in federal, state, or local ordinance that can trigger that clause. And I did negotiate with them over the course of the day. That increase would be limited to twice per year. So I didn't want them each month as new law trying to raise anything. And honestly, I asked him, I said, when's the last time there was an increase like this? And he said he doesn't remember it in the last 18 years. He's been doing this for 18 years. He's never seen it happen. Going on to insurance, the insurance language, and that, sorry, I hit my mic. That's in section 13, pages 7 and 8. We actually eliminated a duplicative provision because, yes, they are indemnifying, defending, and holding us harmless, unrelated to insurance coverage for any liability that arises from their performance under the contract. In addition, we clarified that there is environmental insurance provided by the waste hauler in the amount of $5 million in the event of a environmental action that is brought. Usually that would cover things like their truck spills and causes an environmental hazard, and there's a claim. So there is some insurance coverage there. And they actually put in their mailing address, which was wonderful. Thank you. And then the only other change is the rates included in Exhibit B. So I want to make you aware of where we're at with those negotiations. Again, nothing of substance changing, but keep you apprised of what's going on.
Okay, Alderman Brereton?
Thanks again, Mayor. So I'd like to make a motion that we add an opt-out clause to this thing.
If you do that, well, okay.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor then to add an opt-out clause to this contract. Do we have a second? Okay. All right, is there any other comments or questions regarding this, pardon me?
Is this still about the garbage?
Yes. All right.
So there is a second.
Pardon me?
I'll say second.
What are you seconding?
The opt-out motion.
Okay, and what should that motion be? I mean, just to opt out for?
Opt out if I don't want to participate in this, just like the energy thing that was pushed on all of us. I don't want to participate.
So you're talking about opt-out of a resident saying they'd rather go with somebody else?
That I want to opt out. I don't want to participate. I
Okay.
want the choice.
Okay. Well, I think, okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Alderman Snow?
So just for clarity, I'm assuming because the way this is written, it provides for a sole provider for residential. If you opt out, which you can do anyhow by not paying and signing up, you may get delivery of cans, but you don't have to pay. If you have another source or another way of disposing of your garbage or whatever, you don't actually have to have a bill come from them. That you can't have a separate hauler come to your house to haul your garbage. Is that correct?
Two questions, two answers. First question is, or answer is, the way the ordinance is drafted and the way the agreement is drafted is there can only be one residential waste hauler available in the city of Belvedere. My interpretation of existing federal law, and people may disagree, and state law for that matter, we cannot ostensibly force somebody to have that service. You get around that because you can require them to have the garbage disappear every week. So essentially they have to have a service. But if they want to put their garbage cans in their pickup truck or in their SUV or in their Toyota Pinto, I'm dating myself, and drive it to the landfill, they could do that, certainly. And then they would not have to pay the franchisee for the cost of that waste hauling. So certainly they could landfill it themselves. That's a lot of time, money, and energy, but yes, they could do that. Second question was, I forgot what it was.
Well, it pertained to the fact that that's your opt-out by not
Right.
paying your bill or for initiating the service. The only thing is, if you're gonna have residential service, it has to be through this provider that the city contracts.
If there was an opt-out akin to electric aggregation, you're essentially going back to the same licensing form that we've done for the last 30-odd years. My guess, and I don't want to speak for the franchisee, they're here if they want to answer it, but that would probably make the contract not palatable to them. If they're faced with having to compete with other waste haulers on their franchise, there's no reason to have a franchise. But
Sir? Yeah, come on up, please. State your name for the record.
Hey, John, hit the button.
Good evening.
Good evening, Josh Molnar again with Rock River. Appreciate your time and opportunity. So to answer the multi-layered question there, we did build our proposal and our rates based on the exclusivity that was communicated through the RFP. So in that sense, that's how we intended, that's how we built our rates. So the unknown of people who would not be a part of it really wasn't factored into the rates. And really the exclusivity is why the rates are so much lower than they are typically right now. That being said, if there are some contracts out there that have the ability for people who don't have service, but in that scenario, a residential home that doesn't produce trash or has a means otherwise is few and far between. So, but in terms of a straight opt-out and to use another hauler, wouldn't be covered under our proposal.
Yeah, the request for proposals had the effect that you would have an advantage of, bidding a contract service that would be a franchise with the city of Belvedere, and everybody had the same same scope of work that they could bid on. So I understand that. Yep.
Also want to make a couple other clarifications, just in case I heard it incorrectly. I thought maybe I heard someone mention that MDC drivers would be laid off. I'm not sure if that was mentioned, but that's not the case. So I don't know if that was part of it. Also, a hauler other than, MDC or Rock River who would be losing service, I've never heard of anyone being able to charge that $75 fee to pick up those carts. Typically those haulers either A, participated in the RFP process and lost, or they chose not to participate at all. Typically those are really only enforceable in the open market scenario where people have choice, so they're held to those individual agreements, because at that point they'd still have a scavenger license to do so.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Alderman Snow?
It doesn't pertain to the motion on the floor, but might as well get this answered. What constitutes the age requirement for senior?
What was in the contract, Mike? 65?
Nothing was in there.
65.
We can add it.
Okay. Alderwoman Graham-Kowski?
And I just have one more thing to say. So you could raise the rates 3.5%.
Only every June.
Okay. So the carrier I have now, I have no agreement with him. He can raise them, he or she could raise them 20%.
Correct.
I got to pay it.
Also, there's always a lot of varying depending on when people signed up, based on when costs go up over the years. People could be with the same hauler, but if they signed up at different times, you see a lot of those rates are different. So, for us having, probably between 60, 70% of the homes already, we saw this as an opportunity to, kind of further the relationship with the city. So,
Yeah. Any other questions? Any other comments? All right. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Albertini?
Thank you. I have a statement, not for him, but this statement is for Rick Burt, and he called me out. He says he doesn't think abstaining is a way to go about anything, that I should man up and vote one way or the other. I appreciate him stating that, and I will do what he says. I will man up and do one way or the other. But I do want to remind Alderman Brereton that several times he's abstained from a vote. Okay, so it's not just I'm taking the coward's way out, or I didn't, I'm going to man up and do what he says, but don't call me out as not doing the right thing.
Okay. All right, let's stay to the topic, what we have here. Do you really think this is going to be productive?
Yeah, just to
You do.
clarify, because, I've been watching council meetings for just a little while, and I understand what an abstain vote does, and that it's actually permissible. It goes with the prevailing vote.
Okay, I think
What you're saying is, I don't want to, I don't agree with this, but I don't want to stand in your way. So
Okay.
I never,
Okay. For
let's
point-
just get this over with.
Yep, for point of order here, let's stay to what we have at hand, please. Okay. All right. Where are we at?
We need to vote up or down the motion to opt out.
Okay, we have thank you. We have the motion on the floor then to have an opt-out clause, is that correct? In the language, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor of that amendment will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll.
Graham-Kowski,
Nay.
McGee,
Nay.
Mulhall,
Nay.
Snow,
Nay.
Stevens,
No.
Albertini,
Nay.
Brereton,
Yes.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Nay.
Freeman,
Aye.
3 in favor.
Okay, motion failed, so we have the original motion then on the floor, that being ordinance 668H for second reading here this evening, that being an ordinance amending Article 2, refuse collectors and collection of Chapter 94 solid waste of the City of Belvedere Municipal Code, and authorizing the execution of a residential solid waste disposal agreement. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion on the floor will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll, please.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Snow,
No.
Stevens,
Aye.
Albertini,
Nay.
Brereton,
No.
Flurry,
No.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman,
No.
Gramkowski,
Aye.
5 in favor, the mayor's.
Okay, I'll be more than happy to vote on this one. I had said, I'm going to vote yes. Motion passed. And the reason is because anytime you can save the taxpayers and you can save them money, in this case, it is a savings, and we should do that. Very few times can we do that. So I believe that Sycamore, Rochelle, Dixon, DeKalb, Loves Park, McChesney Park, Rockton, Roscoe, South Beloit, Rockford, and Marengo, I believe that we're not reinventing the wheel. I think they do that because they recognize it's a cost savings, and that's why they bid it. And so I think that's most important. So thank you, everybody. And I appreciate those that came out this evening on both sides of this issue. I hope that it will be, really, the service will be the same, and you will get, you will have a collection fee that is less than what you pay now. I will say this, that in the last 3.5 years, fees have went up 100%, 100% for garbage collection in the community. And that is outrageous. But the CPI index over everything has went up 21.3% under this current administration. We see rising costs in food. We see it in fuel. We see it in everything that we do. And we've seen 100% in garbage collection. If we have a chance to make a difference, I appreciate the discussion, and I appreciate moving forward with this. So thank you, everybody, on both sides of it. All right. Item E, which is ordinance 669H, is in front of you for a second reading this evening, that being an ordinance vacating an abandoned portion of Irene Road in the city of Belvedere. And
That motion.
have a motion by Alderman Snow and a second by Alderwoman Mulhall. Thank you both. Any discussion regarding the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, will, when the name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Albertini,
Aye.
Brereton is left. Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman is left. Gramkowski,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
8 in favor.
Motion passed, thank you. And item 10, under new business, in front of you this evening is ordinance 670H for a first reading, that being an ordinance amending section 10-67A3, licenses, classes, and fees of Article 10 of the City of Belvedere Municipal Code to increase the initial license fee from $10,000 to $20,000, and that will be back to you in 2 weeks. That is for liquor license fees. Item B is for a first reading in front of you this evening, that being ordinance 671H, an ordinance authorizing the sale of certain personal property, specifically the fire department 2003 Ford E350 van. And again, that's a first reading. That will be back to you in 2 weeks for final action. We have item C, resolution 2024-5, that being a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute and the clerk to attest the First Amendment to the agreement with Metro Paramedic Services, Inc. for EMS response and transport services. If I could have a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderwoman, who was that? Alderwoman Mulhall, and a second by Alderwoman Frank, is that correct? Okay. Any questions, any comments? I will ask the chief, Chief Shadle, if he had any comments regarding this. I think you all know that we have a contract with Metro, and we need to maintain that service. But Chief, floor is yours if you choose.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity. I really don't have anything additional to add. Unless you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion on the floor will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls a roll, please.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Albertini,
Aye.
Bert, Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Gramkowski,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
8 in favor.
Motion passed, thank you. And motions, moving on, motions forwarded from Committee of the Whole, Public Safety, Finance, and Personnel of March 25th, 2024. Motions out of Public Safety, Chairman Fleury.
Thank you, Mayor. A, motion to accept a $3,000 donation from Perryville Pet Hospital for the purchase of $1,120 worth of dog food and $1,820 for a Deminant blue bite suit.
Okay, we have that motion out of committee. Any questions, any comments regarding the motion out of committee? Chief Woody, I don't know if you had anything to add. I know that Perryville Pet Hospital, and you'd informed me that Dr. Kelly Kramer was the veterinarian, and certainly appreciate it. And they're concerned for, the city of Belvedere and our K-9. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything or not?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments regarding the motion out of committee? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls a roll, please.
Stevens,
Aye.
Albertini,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Gramkowski,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
8 in favor.
Motion passed. Thank you. Chairman Fleury, item B, please.
B, motion to approve the Corpus Christi Procession Parade permit request from St. James Catholic Church for June 2nd, 2024.
Okay, we have that motion out of committee. Any questions, any concerns regarding that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion out of committee will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Albertini,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Gramkowski,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
8 in favor.
Motion passed. Thank you, Chairman Fleury. Moving out into motions of finance and personnel. Chairwoman Frank.
Thank you, Mayor. Motion to enter into an agreement with Ellen Bergeson Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $25,000 plus clerical costs for administration of a $1 million CDBG Economic Development Grant for the purchase of a racking system to be used by Midwest Refrigerated Services. Funds shall be paid for from line item 015-110-6190.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on the motion? Alderman Snow?
And somebody had brought to my attention that this particular item could or should have been possibly handled by R1 or possibly Growth Dimensions. Didn't know if that was looked at or thought about.
Finance Director Hanson?
Thank you. Good point. With these grants, we actually have to use a person that is on an approved list that DCEO provides us. And I do not believe, I can't say for sure, but I'm not aware that either of those are on the approved list that we have to choose from.
Okay, thank you. And Alderwoman Mohawk?
Thank you, Your Honor. Can I just verify that the $25,000 plus any clerical costs will be reimbursed by MRS? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments, or concerns? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Gramkowski,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Albertini,
Aye.
8 in favor.
Motion passed. Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman Frank. And moving to motions out of Public Works, Chairman Snow.
Thank you, Your Honor. D, motion to approve the low bid from Rock Road Companies in the amount of $336,212.16 and the city's share of $302,212.16 to be paid from MFT funds for the Newburgh Road STBG project.
Okay. So the motion out of committee was to approve the low bid in the amount of $636,212.16, and that being the city's share at $302,212.16 to be paid from MFT funds for the Newburgh Road STBG project. Any questions regarding the motion out of committee? Okay. All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Frank,
Aye.
Gramkowski,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Albertini,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
8 in favor.
Motion passed, thank you. And item E, Chairman Snow.
E, motion to authorize Brent Anderson, Director of Public Works, to enter into contracts to include joint participation agreements on behalf of the City of Belvedere with the State of Illinois and any of its agencies or departments, and further, it authorizes to execute any documents which may, in his judgment, be desirable or necessary to effect the purpose of this vote.
Okay, we have that motion out of committee. That is for the salt contract with the state, just so that we're all on the same page here. Is there any questions for Mr. Anderson? I'm sure he could answer any of those. Anybody have any questions? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor will, when their name is called, answer aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Gramkowski,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Mulhall,
Aye.
Snow,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
Albertini,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
8 in favor.
Motion passed, and that is all we have on the agenda this evening. If I could have a motion to adjourn, please. Motion by Alderwoman Frank and a second by Alderman Albertini. Thank you. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
And if anybody wants to stay, all right, we will adjourn. For the record, 7:40 PM. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.